Marybeth. Um, so we've been friends a long time, right? Since high
Mhm.
school,
Mhm.
and we sort of, I feel like, grew up together. But I know that you probably had a very different experience or a different perspective, maybe, right? Of like even growing up in the same schools. So I first wanted to kind of get your thoughts about like how was it like for you, growing up in northeastern Ohio, like Mayfield, like what was your like most memorable moments or like what were some of your perspectives or thoughts about growing up? Because I have mine,
Mhm.
but I'm sure they're very different for you.
Fair enough. When did we get to interview you, by the way?
Hey, if you want to do that, I'd love to.
Okay, we'll do it. That's the
Yeah,
follow up
we
to this.
could, we'll do the reciprocal.
We could do it. We could do like an interview style, but like both ways.
Yeah, I would do that.
I don't know. I was very lucky. It was easy growing up as part of the dominant culture in Mayfield. Like middle class white family, and I was very lucky. It was me and my sister and our parents, and yeah. I mean, childhood it's always like a little lonely and a little weird, but it was good. Like I was very lucky. I went to Lander Elementary. Um, let's see, nothing really eventful there. I read a lot of books. And then Mayfield Middle School, that's I think where we all started. Like that's where they converged all the elementary schools together.
Hmm.
So I think that's where all of our social circles started taking off a bit. And then high school, I hopefully you had a good high school experience. It seemed like it. I think we had a good core
Somewhat.
group of friends. I mean, as much as
I
high
think
school can be
everybody
for
has their moments, right?
sure,
Hmm.
sure. And I really feel lucky to have gone to Mayfield because like our nerd community was very solid. So like there were a lot of really good kids there, and like we all hung out. We didn't get into trouble or anything, and we had like band nerds, and we had people in like all the honors and AP classes, and we had key club, and we had choir, and we had like all the wholesome activities that you would expect, I guess. But it was nice. Like I really enjoyed high school, and I feel like we had a good education there. Like I'm really grateful, especially from what I see now and from having been a teacher. I think Mayfield was a very solid school district. So I'm really
Yeah,
happy
I
with our
feel the
public
same
schools.
way. I feel very blessed to, of course, know you guys, and I think the relationships has been great too. So
Definitely.
let's move on from that. So like you went to Arizona, right? Right
Mm-hmm.
after high school. So how
Mm-hmm.
was that? That I mean, that was for me like a reverse because I actually moved from Arizona to Mayfield
Right.
and you went the other way. So what was that like? And you went there for school and then you also taught there, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Good memory. Um, actually, before I start, when did you come to
Yeah.
Mayfield? Actually,
I started in seventh grade, so it was like that really super awkward year.
that was a horrible year, I think, for everybody.
I think it's just across the board, no matter what school you're at. But it was
Even
difficult
teaching.
for me just because it was my year like new at a school, so I think it was particularly harder. But
Definitely. And like because our middle school for us started in sixth grade,
hmm.
so everyone had already like established their groups, and for you to come in the next year, that must have been really tricky.
So, but yeah, I want to hear about you. You're like
Oh,
turning it on me. It's like you gotta tell me. No, I'm just kidding.
um, yeah. So I guess I remember. Did you do Tutor Friends? I forget.
I don't really remember.
Tutor Friends was it was a great program Mayfield did where it was kind of student teaching our senior year of high school.
Oh, okay. I think maybe I
You might not
did.
have done it,
Okay, I
but
don't
Eve
remember.
Fong and I we shared a class. We shared a third grade class, and we would go every other day. So she
Oh,
would
for the
go,
elementary school.
yeah,
I
yeah.
see, got it. No, I didn't do that.
Sorry. So
That's
we
okay.
would go. It was like for anyone who was interested in early child development or they wanted to go into teaching, and a
Right.
lot of us were thinking about it. So it was a great experience. So Eve and Eve went on I think odd days, and I went on even days or whatever. And the opposite day we'd have psychology. But it was a really good foundation to see if we wanted to teach. So I remember people like Allison Halko being like, "Nope, don't want to teach."
Well, it's good to find out, right?
Before you invest all that time and money. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, we had a class of third graders, and the girls I carpooled with. I just remember every winter morning, I'm like, it's too cold. I hate it. I hate it. It's so cold. And I remember Valerie DeCavett saying, well, if you hate it so much, you should just leave. I'm like, I will leave. So that's what put the Arizona idea in my head. And then,
Oh, okay.
yeah. And I forget, oh, I think the movie Fools Rush In was popular around then
Mhm.
with like Salma Hayek and Matthew Perry. And it was a stupid movie, but they filmed it partially in Nevada. And I'm like, oh, the desert looks so beautiful. So I started looking into Arizona schools. And my oldest sister, Eileen, I didn't grow up with her, but she went with me to Arizona. And we looked at the top 3 big schools there. So it was Arizona State in Tempe, University of Arizona in Tucson, and Northern Arizona in Flagstaff. And just for where I was in my little like beginning hippie life, Flagstaff was a really good fit. It was up in the mountains, so it wasn't entirely desert, but it was gorgeous. So
Not super hot, right?
no, it gets 4 seasons. It's actually similar in climate to Ohio. Go figure.
You're like, wait, what did I just do?
Yep, backfire. Yep. So I started my first semester at Northern Arizona in 2001, and then 9/11 happened like a couple weeks
Right.
in, which was crazy. I think we all have our stories about you know, where we were and what happened. And I was dating a guy back home, and I was homesick, and my mom was like, "Oh, you have to come back. We don't know what's going to happen." So I was only there a semester. So I came back to Ohio, and then I went to Ohio State.
Oh, okay. So you were only there for a semester.
Initially, yeah.
I see.
Yeah. So I came back, and then I roomed with Eve Fong and Karen Bernard. They're also Mayfield alum. So we roomed together, and then Ohio State was good, and then I went back to Arizona afterwards for grad school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because at that time, Ohio State, they changed their program, but for teaching, it was a master's only program when I went there. So we had to get our master's. So I went to Arizona to get my master's for education.
I see. You were like, no, I want to still go back.
Yes. Yeah, I missed it a lot. And, you know, that relationship and I didn't work out. So I ended up back in Arizona, and I stayed there and graduated and taught for 3 years or 4 years. Yeah, like 4 years there. I worked for the county health department for a year, and then had enough teaching here, and I wanted to see how it was in other countries. So I got certified to teach internationally in Costa Rica. And then when we graduated that program, they gave us a spreadsheet, and it had like all the cost benefit analyses. So they said, you know, how much money do you want to make? What kind of culture do you want? How safe do you want it to be? Are you a man or a woman? Are you single or not? So for a single woman, one of the safest places to go was Korea. So I went to South Korea, and I taught there for 6 years, and then started getting in like the volunteering mode there. I worked with North Korean refugees for a while. And then one of them was a medical student, so he made me fall in love with like the language of medicine. And I went to Greece and volunteered with refugees coming in from Turkey, like from around the world. Hello, little one. And yeah, I ended up coming back to Ohio for nursing school. So here we are.
Wow,
I'm a nurse
that's
now.
cool. So I want to sort of like rewind a little bit. That was really awesome. I just think I want to hear all the, all the details, right? But so what was it like teaching in Arizona? Like, was it, so you fell in love with teaching, right? With the tutor friends, but like when you actually went into the classroom there, how did you like that? Like, did you enjoy it? Was it difficult? Or like, can you tell me some stories or
sure.
fun facts?
I need stories. Hello. Hello. What's her name?
Haley.
Haley.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're huge. I'm in baby pictures.
She just turned 3.
Hi, Haley.
Can you say hi?
That's okay. We'll get to. Oh, I got a hi. All right. Hey there. Oh, and a smile. All right. To be continued, Haley. She's so cute. Yeah, teaching was horrible. It was horrible the first year.
So it was very different than you imagined.
Yes, it was extremely stressful. I took my first job in a very rural district where, I mean, the whole town's population was about Mayfield size, like Mayfield High School. So it was like 100 people in the whole town. Tiny. I was very isolated. I didn't really know anyone. And they gave me a 4th and 5th combination class.
Okay.
So it was probably the worst year of my life. It was awful.
I'm going to try to give her to Dad for a second. Sorry, I kind of missed that. So it was very rural, didn't have any friends. It was hard. Like, was it also rewarding, or was it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I love the kids. But they gave me a combination class. There was 2 grades together. It was 4th and 5th grade. So the 4th grade parents were worried, and the 5th grade parents were worried, and it was horrible. So I just taught the 5th grade curriculum. I'm like, forget it. We're just all doing 5th grade stuff.
Okay.
We'll deal with it.
Yeah.
It was horrific. And a lot of the parents did meth. That was the meth capital of Arizona, the city I was in. So a lot of the parents were in bad shape. So the kids were in bad shape. And I mean, I got assaulted my first year there. We had a kid like get handcuffed and put in the back of a police car and everything. And it was a big kid, but it was not ideal.
That sounds really scary.
Yeah, it was not fun. And the administration tried to be supportive, but it was tough. But I stuck out the whole year. I blogged about it, so that got me through the year.
Oh,
And I turned
wow.
the blog into like a little book that I gave my mom so she could see what it was like.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but I made it through, and there were some rewarding things. Like I was on the PTO, so I was secretary of the PTO, and I was very involved. I went to all their concerts and their sports and stuff, and I really loved the kids. So I liked that part of it, but I was very bad at classroom discipline. I was excited to teach, and just it's hard keeping 30 kids all, listening at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But there were good parts, and that we did a playground fundraising effort, which was really nice. So
Wow.
there were some good things. There were some cool events.
Wow, that's cool. Were you able to use your Spanish? Because I know you also
Yeah, with a couple kids. Yeah, there were 3 kids who spoke Spanish. So, and then I translated for all the parent-teacher conferences, which was nice.
That's cool.
So after that, I quit. I'm like, forget teaching. I'm done with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to the health department. So I worked in tobacco prevention and cessation,
Oh, cool.
which was awesome, but it was grant funded. So that job only lasted a year. I see Haley in the background.
Speaking over.
It looks like she's in the bowl from this vantage point.
Yeah, she's on top of Dad's shoulders, actually.
Very cool. But she, yeah, so the health department job was great, but only lasted a year because Arizona before Ohio went smoke free. So I remember we voted on that in like 2005, 2006, and it was established in 2006. So I was part of the enforcement. And then the grant ran out, so I went back to teaching after that. So I taught middle school math for a couple of years after that, and that was great. That was a better school district. It was in Phoenix. I like Phoenix a lot better than the middle of nowhere. So that was fun, and we made YouTube videos. So we have our own like little YouTube channel for educational videos. So that was fun.
Cool.
Yeah, and I did enjoy that, and I got to use a lot more Spanish there.
That's awesome. So then you said, I want more adventure, right?
Yeah. Well, I applied to the Peace Corps.
Oh, you did? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I had a hold. Good night, Haley. I had a hold put on my account because I divulged that I had my tonsils and adenoids removed as a kid.
Oh.
So they're like, oh, we don't have the medical records, so we're going to put a medical hold until you come up with those records. And it was
But
like,
that sounds like a very minor thing.
it was so minor. And I was 6 years old. I'm like, that pediatrician's long dead. I don't know if his office is even open anymore. So anyway, I didn't get to do the Peace Corps. So instead, I'm like, well, I still want to go abroad. So that's when I decided to go teach abroad. And that was that whole spin around the world.
Wow. So you were in Korea first, right? And
Costa
how
Rica
was
to get
Costa Rica
certified.
first?
Just for a couple months, yeah.
Oh, I see. Cool. And
That
then
was for
were
the
you teaching
training.
English there?
So the Costa Rica was the training program to get
Oh, okay.
certified.
Got it. That's awesome.
Yeah, but it wasn't very safe because a lot of people in our group got robbed, and it wasn't safe for women alone at night, and I didn't want to stay somewhere that was unsafe.
Wow. So you could have stayed there to teach, but just decided not to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It was very nice. I mean, lovely people, beautiful climate. There's a lot of ecology efforts going on there.
Yeah.
But just in the city we were, it wasn't that safe.
I see. I've never been there. I've never been to any tropical,
Ooh,
area.
you
So
should go. Now's a good time. Well, I mean, not now, but
after.
usually winter is nice time to go.
I see. And then how was Korea? Was that a cultural shock, or I mean, it
Definitely
sounds like
culture
you're
shock.
very comfortable with culture shock now, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You're just like dive in, or
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was culture shock at first, but I met people online before I went, so I could meet them when I got there, just so I had like a safety net. I loved it, but the first couple of weeks were strange, just because it's a new country, it's a new language. But I learned the alphabet before I left. So Korean's phonetic, unlike Chinese or Japanese. Well, Japanese has different alphabets, but because everyone's like, oh, it's probably like Chinese. So as you probably know, Korean used to write their like everything, their newspapers and everything used to be written in the Chinese lettering.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
This is Jonah.
Jonah. The Korean alphabet is phonetic, so once you learn the alphabet, you can read everything.
Oh,
so I learned to read and write before I left, and that helped a lot. Yeah.
So were you able to communicate there?
Yeah. Pretty much everyone speaks English, which was awesome. And there's a lot of Konglish, like Korean and English.
Oh.
Like hamburger is hamburger, and pizza is pizza, and like it's very similar.
Wow, interesting.
So that helped a lot.
What are some of your most memorable moments, or did you have do you want to share
Well,
some like fun
I could
or
share some. No, Korea was amazing. One of the coolest moments was going to the DMZ. That's the demilitarized zone. It's the border of
Oh,
North
I'm
and South
thinking
Korea.
the Department of Motor Vehicles. Like the DMV.
Woo!
So I got
Driver's
my
license.
license. Oh, so you went
No,
to the area between North and South Korea.
right.
How was that?
It was fascinating. It was so bizarre and different.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to like kind of set foot on North Korean soil, but it was there were tons of military personnel on both sides. So
Wow.
there's a negotiating room we were able to go into and see guards from both sides and see where all these peace treaties were signed before that didn't go anywhere. And it was wild. And you could see like all that propaganda from across the border. They were shouting
Wow.
it at Korea like with loudspeakers, and they had big signs and
Really?
everything.
Wow.
It was fascinating. So that was pretty neat. We did a lot of trips with other foreigners. Like we went to the beaches a lot and stuff. And
Mhm.
some of my best friends there ended up being Canadian, Australian, New Zealand, and South Africans.
Wow.
So it
So
was cool
friends from
meeting
all
people
over
from all
the
over.
world.
Yeah, and of course Korean friends. Like some of
Right.
my best friends there were Korean.
That's
But
so
it was a
cool.
really good time. We got to travel a lot. With all the breaks we had, I got to travel the world, which was amazing.
That's so cool.
And they paid. So a little plug to teach in Korea.
Yeah.
Anyone who speaks English from an English speaking country like the US or Canada, um, if you have a bachelor's in anything, you can go teach over there. And they pay for airfare and housing, severance, pension, and insurance.
Oh, wow. So
So
do you
it's
have
a
to
good
have a
thing.
certification? Like
You
you went
don't.
to Costa Rica to get the training?
It depends on the school. But the visa requirements, you just need a bachelor's in any subject, and then it's up to the school
Okay.
if they want the certification or not.
I see.
But
Interesting.
it was,
That's
it
good
was
to know.
fantastic. So
Yeah.
this adventure, there,
So people should look into it if they're interested.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can just Google teach English in Korea. It's very, and they even have like camps for a month that you can go do.
That's cool. Sounds like I should go.
You could, that'd be fun.
It's
They
like
would
they
think you're
pay you,
Korean.
they feed you.
Yeah. But if you, so I taught at a Korean university for a year and a half,
Oh,
and
okay.
that was awesome. That was the best job I've had in my life. Like that was amazing. But we had students come in from all over the world
Mm-hmm.
to study Korean. So where else better to
Oh,
study Korean than in
mm-hmm.
Korea?
Right.
So we had a lot of students from Europe. We had random students from like Sweden or Denmark and all over. But we had a ton of Chinese students because there's a lot of trade between China and
Right.
Korea, especially in the makeup industry.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a lot of students coming to like start a business because they wanted to have international trade between China and Korea. And a lot of Koreans at least can understand some Chinese because that's the foundation of their language. So
Right.
anyway, it was like this cultural exchange. But for some reason, every exchange student still had to take an English class, which I thought was really
Oh,
dumb.
okay. And that was your class.
Yes, that was my class. So I got to teach everyone. So
Mhm.
I taught like a Finnish student who was completely fluent and a Chinese student who grew up in rural China and knew like 2 words.
Mm.
So they were in the same class, and I was like, what do I teach you guys?
Wow.
Yeah, and I felt so bad because they would come with their phones like to translate and try and talk to me, and I felt so bad. I'm like, why do you guys have to take this class? Like it just wasn't fair to them.
Mm.
Because neither student was appropriate for that class.
I see.
Like one didn't need it and one couldn't understand it. So I'm like, this is stupid, but
Oh
I
no.
had fun. Yeah.
So what was so amazing about it? So you said that was your favorite job. Like, why was
hmm
it your favorite job?
Um, so teachers, I assume the same holds true in most of China as well in Japan. They're respected a lot more.
Oh.
So the
Mm-hmm.
respect was so much higher there, and
Mm-hmm.
like people bow to you, and like at first, like my first couple of years there, I would bow back, and the students would make fun of me. They're like, "You're the teacher, you don't bow to us."
Oh, really?
But
I
it was
would
it was
feel
just like a
like I would.
reflex.
Yeah.
Bow, and I would bow. I'm like, no, no, no. I'm like, okay. Um, so I got better at it, but like of course, like we always bowed to our bosses and stuff. But I
Oh.
like the bowing. I like that they would listen because American students are just. It's not just disrespectful. It's just I think they don't care enough, and it's not part of the American culture as much to be respectful in a classroom.
Mm-hmm.
It's more individual here. It's more like, oh, I have my idea. I'm going to say it no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Where at least in Korea, I thought it was more collective. Like there was more. They call it nunchi. It's like this group dynamic.
Oh, mm-hmm. Like the
So
classroom group.
yeah, and so
Mhm.
you're trying to like keep harmony in the group. It's not
I
like
see.
necessary. And like sometimes I was wrong and they wouldn't correct me, and I would catch myself later. I'm like, oh, I was wrong when I said blah blah blah. Like, why didn't you say something? And they're like, oh, nunchi. So I was like, what's Noonchi? And they're like, oh,
Oh,
we wanted to keep harmony in the group. We didn't want to like upset anybody.
interesting.
Yeah, if the vibe is pretty mellow, then they would be mellow. And if it was like a talking exercise where they were supposed to pair up and talk, it was good energy. But like they just felt that the group dynamic was more important than what the individual had to say. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's really interesting. I think it's one of the hallmarks of the Asian culture, right? I mean, I think even now with the pandemic, it's like people are much more willing to give up their individual rights for the
Yep,
collective good. Whereas
yep.
I think, as we've witnessed, here is that people are like, it's all about me.
Oh,
So
it's
it's very
horrible.
different. But I also
Hard
see
for,
sort of the
oh,
opposite
sorry.
problem for, sorry,
Sorry.
for some of the students from Asia to the US, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
sometimes they're afraid to speak up when
Yep,
they need to. So that's
yep.
kind of an opposite thing.
Yeah, because they're taught that it's rude and it's rude to contradict the teacher, you
Yeah.
know?
But where
Um,
here is like it's encouraged a
of
lot.
course. Yeah, it's hard. It's very hard. And I don't know. I was there for the MERS outbreak too, the Middle Eastern
Oh.
respiratory
Hmm.
syndrome, from the camels. It is from like camel milk and
Oh,
camel meat. That's
wow.
how they found it transpired. But at any rate, that I was there during that outbreak, and everyone had to wear masks. Like I wore masks, and like no one had a big deal because like when people in Korea get sick, they would just automatically wear a mask because they
I
didn't want to
see.
get other people sick.
Even
It
if
was
it
just
wasn't a
normal.
pandemic, yeah.
Mhm. Just in the winter, like everyone would have a mask on. And then I saw like people who'd been there, like foreigners who had been there a while, like they would start wearing them. I mean,
Hmm.
it's just part of the culture. You're just trying to protect everyone so you don't get them sick. And it's a
Right.
no-brainer. So here it's like, why is that a big deal?
Yeah. Wow. So after Korea, you went to Greece
Yes. Yeah.
and you were doing not teaching, but more medical related things.
So that's when I was deciding to make the transition from teaching to nursing
Mm-hmm.
because of that work with that medical student. And that's when the whole, I mean, it's still going on, but the big refugee crisis in the Middle East
Yeah.
was going on, and
Mm-hmm.
it's still going on. It's horrible. I mean, there's millions of people displaced.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of people coming from Syria. That's when like the big Syrian crisis was happening, and they
Right.
were leaving in huge masses. So they would go through Turkey to go to Greece, and Greece would be their key point into Europe, so they could get some kind of sanctuary in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in Greece for a couple of weeks, and I helped pull people off the boats and stuff, and
Oh,
help
wow.
get them settled in refugee camps, and it was crazy. So I mean, just the shock you see people who've given up everything, and that's when like America. That was 2016, so that's when America was like starting the whole Trump thing and
Mm-hmm.
hating on immigrants and refugees. And I'm like, you don't even know what they're giving up. Like, I mean, I saw grandparents. They'd have like a suitcase, their whole like generations of their families in a suitcase, and they've given up everything they know, and they're going to die in a foreign country. And it was heartbreaking. And there were new mothers, there were like babies on these boats, there were mothers coming in who'd just given birth or who were pregnant, and like they were in shock. It was awful. And they're like, and then the camp where we were in Moria. It was
Mm-hmm.
like on Lesbos, like the Lesbos island.
Mm-hmm.
That camp just burned down a couple weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
Huge camp. I mean, it could fit thousands of people in it, and it burned down. So
Oh,
that was
wow.
heartbreaking. So I don't know where those people are going to go, because Greece
That's
took in
terrible.
millions of people, and then Germany took in a couple, or I think Germany took in 1 million, I believe, at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But we took in, I mean, a couple measly thousand. It was embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
We have all this land, and we didn't take anyone in.
Right.
So yeah,
Wow.
that was heartbreaking. But then the team I worked with, it was a Dutch team. So
Mm-hmm.
props to my friends in the Netherlands because they were amazing. So it was a lot of doctors, a couple nurses,
Mm-hmm.
and they taught me how to assess, how to help with trauma, how to help recognize shock, like what to do for shock. And one of my mentors there was an American nurse. So he's like, you have to go to nursing school, you have to do this, you have to like learn to assess, and you have to get
Mm-hmm.
in there, and this is fighting the good fight. So he talked me into it. So when I
Wow.
came back, yeah.
I just think it's so admirable. I think a lot of us think like there's so much wrong going on in the world, but for you to actually go there and physically, help the people, put yourself out there, like that's just so inspirational for me.
Oh, thanks.
That's
And it
awesome.
wasn't enough. It's never enough.
Hmm.
But now I know which organizations to support, like the International Refugee Committee, like IRC. They are amazing. They're refugees.org for the plug.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
that's,
so,
yeah, they're
send me the
awesome.
links and I can, put it in.
Yep.
But like,
They were
I
there,
love to
Doctors Without
hear.
Borders. Yeah, there's so
Yeah,
many good organizations there, and they were doing really good work.
that's awesome. And when you started there, like, what did you have to do anything, like any training to get into that program or?
So no, the reason I chose that program, I was looking. I mean, for a while, I wanted to do something with Syrian refugees, just because
Hmm.
of all the hate that the U.S. was pouring out. I wanted to kind of balance that out a little bit. So the organization I chose, they were taking lay people, which a lot of ones wanted medical professionals, and at the time I wasn't. So they were just taking anybody, and like the Dutch speak perfect English. So we would have they actually, one of the people on Lesbos Island, one of the owners of one of the hotels let us have it for free. So he gave us free lodging, which was amazing.
Wow.
So we would have meetings in the lobby like every night. We would have like a debriefing session just for people to like say what they saw and like kind of process it, and have logistical planning for the next day and stuff, because we were around the clock. So like we would have night shift, we'd have like morning shift, we'd rotate through all the hours to like look for boats and get on the radio and help triage and stuff.
That sounds like a pretty stressful situation.
It was more stressful at the time because like there was I forget what happened, but there was the boat stopped for a couple of days. There was a meeting in Europe at the time, so everything stopped for a couple of days. So like there was nothing going on, but everyone was telling us these horror stories. And then whenever those officials left, I think there was some meeting in Turkey, I forget, but whenever they left, then everything opened back up. But just the stories we heard, it was awful.
Wow.
And a lot of people drowned. And the Greek, their Coast Guard, sometimes they would drown the boats, which like you watch them, pouring like hoses of water on the boats to drown them and pull the people out. I know, it was.
That's terrible.
Because they would fight over whose water they were in. So the Greeks didn't want them on their water, and they're like, okay, go back to the Turkish water, so you're their problem. And they were just like fighting over whose problem it was, and that was really fun.
That's so hard to imagine.
So when here there's all this like anti-immigrant and anti-refugee rhetoric, I'm like, you don't even know what they're going through. Like that's just heartless,
And it's not that different for the refugees coming through South America.
Right. Oh, that's
so
in some ways worse. Yeah.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Wow. So then you came back to the US, and then you're like, I want to be a nurse. And I remember that, when you posted and said, I'm going to nursing school. And that was very exciting. So how was that process for you transitioning from teaching to going back to school? Like, was that hard?
It was hard in a way, but it was nice being older. I think that helped a lot because there were a lot of kids like right out of high school, but I was in the accelerated program. So for my program, you had to have a bachelor's in something already.
I see.
But for all the prereqs, like there were some kids straight out of high school, like 18, 19 years old. And I was shocked. I think that was the first time I felt old because they could pick stuff up like that. And I'm sitting there with my notes. I'm like, wait, what? So that was the hardest part, was feeling like my brain was slowing down. But after the prereqs, and that wasn't all of them, like microbiology was amazing. That was my favorite class. And biochem was awesome. But anatomy and physiology gave me a lot of trouble because it was taught as if it were for medical school. So that was it was tough. It was a tough class.
She's back. So what would you give advice for people who wanted to change careers and go back to study nursing, for example? If there's somebody, what would be your words of advice for them?
I would just say to do it.
Just do it. Just jump in.
Yeah, I keep telling my mom. My mom just retired and she's 71 now, and I'm like, Mom, just go back to nursing school. And she's like, but I'm 71. I'm like, you're not dead. Just go do it. It's fine.
It's not too late. I had a good friend actually in Arizona when she was younger. So she's passed away now. But when she was younger, she grew up in the Great Depression. So when she was young, like women were not allowed to go to college. Right? There were no colleges for women. So when she finally went to college, she was in her 60s.
Wow.
I think it was, the 1970s when the colleges started to open up for women. And she was like one of the first ones to sign up. But she was like 60 or 70 years old.
Cool.
So that was so cool for me to hear that, because, I feel like we take a lot of those like the benefits for granted, even being a woman. So we should always appreciate what the women who have come before us have done. Right?
Exactly. Especially with voting. When people don't vote, I'm like, do you know how hard it was to get that right?
Yeah. And people died.
Yeah. I mean, so yes, it's good to stand on their shoulders and move forward,
Absolutely. So now you're a full-fledged nurse. Yay! And then
2 years next month.
2 years, wow. And then you went to New York City, like right when COVID first broke out, right?
Yeah.
I know you were just there for a short time, but can you tell
Yeah.
me sort of about that? Like any interesting, stories or I'm sure people might be interested in that experience because New York City was really ground zero.
Yeah, they got
Actually, they're
hardest hit
really
at the
hurting.
beginning. Right. I wish I had better stories. I had a lot of issues with my job here. I
Hmm.
was a float pool nurse when I first started, so I worked pretty much every floor that was not ICU or not pediatrics. Everything else I
Hmm.
worked. So we were kind of extra staff when the hospital was short staffed. So I tried to go to New York right when it first broke out there, and my boss didn't want me to go. So I had to fight my job because I wanted to keep my job and come back to it, but
Right.
go help while there was a
Well, you
crisis.
were too good. Of course, they don't want you to go.
That's not it. It's short staffing. um, but yeah, like I had to fight my boss for a while and fight the job, and eventually it took a month and a half to actually get to go. So by the time I went, it was more under control. So I was there for a
Okay.
week, and they canceled me, and I had to go back.
Oh no.
Yeah, but it was crazy being there. New York shut down. New York City shut down beautifully. Like they were on a good lockdown. Everyone wore masks. They were so much better than Ohioans are. I mean, so my husband came with me. He surprised me on the
Oh
airplane,
wow. Hmm.
and I was shocked too because on the flight, like some people weren't wearing masks. I'm like, what are you doing? And
Oh wow. And
there were
it's
a
like
couple
really
nurses
high
on it.
risk on the flight, especially.
Yeah, yeah, and it was just so in Ohio, like Cleveland to New York, there were no people wearing masks. But then I don't know. I think we were on two flights. I don't remember, but there was one flight where they're coming from Atlanta, and people had masks on that flight because Atlanta's where the CDC is, and they were taking it more
Oh,
seriously there. And New
I
York was
see.
taking it seriously, but Ohio was like, eh. So that was sad. But anyway,
Yeah.
New York was they clapped at 7. Like shift change at hospitals is generally 7 a.m. and 7 p.m.
Hmm.
like give or take. So 7 p.m. every night they would have the whole city would like clap and cheer,
Oh
and
wow.
that was really cool. The first time I heard it, I cried, and I took a video
Oh,
of it, and that was really touching. And they had like healthcare worker discounts everywhere. But I went to New York Presbyterian to work, and then
hmm.
they sent me to 3 different ones. And then eventually, after I did my whole training, they're like, actually, we don't need you. We have enough staff
Oh,
here. So
but you
those
got to
are
keep your job, right? So that
Oh
was
yeah,
good.
yeah. Thank
Yeah.
goodness. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I HR at my work is amazing, and they saved my job. But then I felt uncomfortable because of all the dynamics that I caused a rift with my job. So I got a different job in research, and now I'm in research, but I pick up on other floors still.
I see. Wow. And I saw that you posted you just got your vaccine.
Yeah, yeah. I got my Moderna COVID vaccine 2 weeks
Awesome.
ago, and now I'm giving it. So I'm giving it to other healthcare workers, which is cool.
That's cool. So you got the first dose and then you haven't gotten the second one yet, or you will get the
Right.
second one?
Yeah, that's I think 3 weeks from today I get the next one.
I see. Awesome. So you're for the vaccine. Everyone should get it
Very,
if
yes,
they can.
100%. I wasn't at first. And I work in research now. I do clinical trials,
Mhm.
and we did the Pfizer vaccine, and we partnered with the AstraZeneca trials. So we've been part of that clinical research.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't sure because I'm pretty new to research, but like a phase 1 trial is the first time it's ever in people. So they test it.
Hmm.
They do like a theoretical model, then it goes to animals, then it goes to humans, and then phase 2 is trying to get like the dose and everything right, and then
Hmm.
phase 3 is when they roll it out versus placebo. So there's all these different things. But for this vaccine, they did 1, 2, and 3 all together.
Oh wow, like in parallel.
Yeah, exactly, which they
Okay.
generally don't do because 1 is usually to establish a safety parameter to make
Mhm.
sure it won't kill you. And
Right.
then they do 2 is like the escalation where they see like how much dose people can handle. And then 3, they pair it versus placebo to see how effective it actually is.
I see.
So they did all 3 together. I'm like, but that's how to fast track it. And
Hmm.
the more I read, the more that's not unsafe. That's honestly how everything should go. But they just had a massive amount of funding for this because it affected the whole world.
Right.
So we had a major amount of funding for everything. So we got the Moderna one, and there were a lot more safety trials done on that one from what I've been reading versus Pfizer. And I
Mhm.
mean, I think they're both safe and effective because they're
Yeah. It
mRNA,
doesn't
which is
really
like,
matter, you think, which one you get?
no, No, and they don't like because everyone's like, oh, they alter your DNA. I'm like, no, they teach your DNA. They teach your cells to make more. I'm sure you know, but like
Hmm.
it's just a blueprint that your body uses to make this spike protein that you can learn to recognize in the future. I mean, it's just teaching your body how to do something. It's not infecting you.
Hmm.
So it's just so you can attack it when like you see it again. And I think it's really cool. And it's one of the first vaccines to use this technology. I think it's wonderful. So I did have to read about it at first because I was just shocked by how quickly it went through. Some
Right. I was a
trials like
bit
to go for years.
skeptical about it too, but I just, wanted to hear your thoughts as a medical professional too.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
I get mad now when I hear other nurses who don't want to take it because they're
Mm.
like some studies are saying up to 40% of nurses don't want to take it.
Oh, wow.
And that really upsets me. I'm like, well, why not? Like, what have you read about it? I don't
Mm.
like, I mean, rumors are one thing and hearsay is one
Right.
thing, and your
Like, what's
Facebook is
where's the
one thing.
evidence, right?
Right. But
Yeah.
I'm like, if you're looking at peer reviewed journals, if you're looking at actual clinical trials, if you're like talking to physicians about it, or
Yeah.
people who've actually done the real research, like peer based, peer reviewed evidence based research,
Yeah. Not
would
the fake
make
news.
yeah. I will say my 5G is phenomenal. I'm kidding. But no, I don't have any hesitations anymore. And I wanted to get it before I gave the vaccine, before I administered it.
Yeah.
So every person I gave the shot, I said, I got this myself. I
Right. So
wouldn't,
you feel like,
yeah,
yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. And
Wow.
like we've had a couple people just, I mean, have flu-like reactions afterwards because your body's
Mhm.
mounting an immune response. So
Right.
it happens. Like people get a fever or aches or chills, but that lasts a day or two, and then
But that's
they're
normal for
fine.
pretty much any vaccine.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. And even like pregnant women have gotten it. So they haven't done studies on it because they never do studies on pregnant women, but
Mhm.
they said there's no contraindication to it. So a lot of my like people I know who are pregnant got it, and they
Mhm.
said they feel good about getting it. They feel like they're helping protect their baby too.
That's good. I just hope they can roll it out quickly enough and try to get this behind us.
Yeah, I would love to. I would love if everyone could just get it now.
Hmm.
And Israel's like rolled it out ridiculous. Like almost their whole population's been vaccinated. I mean, they have a much
Oh,
smaller
wow.
population,
Sure.
but I wish we could just roll it out like they did.
Yeah, I guess they have to make it, right? I'm not really sure like what the bottleneck is, but
Part of the problem is the storage.
oh,
The
okay.
Pfizer and Moderna ones, they take colder storage than like the flu vaccine, for example.
I
So
see.
we have to have this super cold storage, and once they draw it up, it's only good for 8 hours. So you have a very quick shelf
Oh,
life on these things. Yeah, because most vaccines I give, like we see the expiration on it. It's like, oh, it's a couple weeks out, but the Moderna one, like it's in hours. It's like this one
oh
expires at
wow.
4 o'clock, so you have to use it before 4 o'clock. I'm like, oh man, so fast.
So that makes the whole system just like more difficult to time, right?
Yeah, because they have to have the capabilities for the cold storage.
Mm-hmm.
And like I'm getting trained to do it for hospice volunteers because I'm a hospice volunteer,
I see.
and I'm trying to give it to the hospice volunteers. So we have to go through this whole big CDC training on cold storage
Wow.
because if it's from the point of like manufacturing to the point that it's in an arm,
Mm-hmm.
you have to make sure it's cold all the way until it's administered. So
Right,
that's
because you don't
it's a
want it to
lot,
go bad, right?
right? Because then it
Yeah.
wouldn't work and people wouldn't trust it and blah blah blah. So
Right.
yeah, it's a mess, but hopefully it'll come together.
Wow.
Now,
Amazing.
there's two more coming out: the AstraZeneca one and the Johnson and Johnson one. Those are coming out.
Oh, really?
Um,
There's more. Mm-hmm.
yeah, those are using the adenovirus, which is basically how a flu vaccine works. So they're using
Okay.
older technology, but it's tried and true, and
Mm-hmm.
it's how most vaccines are made. So those don't require the cold storage, and those are only one dose. So they're hoping that can get to more people,
I see.
especially like in countries where they don't have refrigeration readily available.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. And especially if there's more sources, then
Right.
that means more people can get it. So that'd be great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I just wish we could roll it out faster.
That's cool.
But I gave 25 vaccines last week, and I signed up for another clinic this week. my hospital system, we've given 12,000 already with the first
Wow.
dose. So we're getting there, but I
That's
just want
good.
everyone to get it.
Thank you for fighting the good fight.
Hi.
Everything you're doing, that's amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate
Cool.
it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you have any parting thoughts or parting words for people who are, you know, um, maybe interested in medicine, or maybe they're interested in teaching or interested in helping refugees or any of the things that you're passionate about?
Aw.
Yeah, like, do you have any,
Yeah.
words of wisdom or words of advice for them?
What I always tell people, whatever they want to go into, observe. Like, go shadow somebody. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's the best thing you can do before you're investing time and money.
Yeah.
Just go observe. And even if you're curious about like a local charity, go observe what they do. Like ask if you can follow a volunteer, help a volunteer, Or if you want to be a doctor or nurse, ask if you can shadow them for a part of a shift. Or if you want to go into teaching, ask if you can help in a classroom. Like just get in there and see what it's actually like, instead of, because like your head does one thing, but reality is different.
Right.
So get in there and see the reality of it and then decide.
Yeah. That's great advice.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Jen.
Hi guys, thank you for watching this interview. Hope you guys enjoyed it. What I want to know is what was your favorite part? There were so many good parts. She has so many different adventures. Please comment below and tell me what was your favorite part about this interview. And if you'd like to support any of the organizations that we talked about, please look in the descriptions. I have the links to those organizations below. And please like and subscribe. I will have some more videos coming up for you with some more interesting folks and more interesting stories for you. See you soon.